Totally, Piers. Thank you for having me. So I think that there are three things that we need to just agree that all the data supports and affirms in South Africa. And this comes from independent regulatory bodies, from independent researchers from around the world in South Africa. The first one is that the vast majority of white South Africans live a better quality of life now than the vast majority of black South Africans currently living will ever be able to live and could dream of living. So that's point one. Point two, crime patterns are absolutely clear across this country. The richer and whiter you are, and usually based on what I've just said, the whiter you are, the richer you are. That's an undeniable correlation based on historical rigging of our economic system during and before apartheid. The richer and whiter you are, the less likely you are to suffer crime, and the poorer and blacker you are, the more likely you are to suffer crime. And then thirdly, there is no evidence of targeted race-based murders in this country. There has not been a single land seizure in this country by the government or others based on race. And I want to speak to what Ernst Ruth said. It's crucial to point out this, that he talks about the particular brutality, allegedly, of farm murders without countenancing the fact that the vast majority of murders in this country affecting all kinds of people are particularly brutal and awful and garish. It's not unique to farm murders. It happens all the time in all communities. It is ghastly and awful. It's not a specific plight of the farmer. And Ernst claims that you need to count like the number of farm murders in line with the proportion of how many people there are. Actually, if you look at the data, farmers, whiter farmers, suffer less crime than black farmers and farmers of color because they are better protected by their wealth, which is often a corollary with their race. It actually turns out that when you count the beans, white farmers are absolutely not being disproportionately sufferers of crime. What really happens, Piers, in farming communities around the country is that in a farming community, there are many poor people for whom the only place that they can gain work is a farm. And the only source of wealth in that area is the farm. And so crime out of necessity to try and steal something to gain wealth, while very regrettable, it makes sense that it happens. It makes sense that it targets the source of wealth, the source of income, and the source of value. That happens all across the country. And there were crime stats that came out, if I can just finish, Piers, because crime stats came out 3 days ago that are super relevant to this. And thank you for the crime stats that you spoke about earlier. But crime stats came out 3 days ago from the first quarter of South Africa this year, 1 Jan to 31 March. There were around 5,700 murders across the country. There were 6 murders involving people who work on farms. 5 of them were people of color. 1 of them was a white person. 2 farm owners died. They're both black. 3 of the farm laborers who died were black, and the 1 white person was a farm dweller. So we are not here to allow the spin of data to make it sound like it is worse to be a white farmer than any other group in this country, because it is simply not true. And SAPS, the South African Police Force, was questioned earlier this year because there were allegations of undercounting farm murders. SAPS went through all of those complaints and found that only 1 of the names of a person who was allegedly murdered in the last year who was involved in a farm had already been counted in the previous quarter of the statistics. The actual group of people who are undercounted in terms of how much they suffer crime are impoverished people and black people, because those are the stories that don't end up with the police and don't end up.
So let me ask you this question, which is why has Donald Trump been lent on, do you think, by so many people, possibly, we assume, including Elon Musk, who's obviously is South African himself. What do you think is going on here to make Donald Trump, President of the United States, take on the South African president in the way that he did?
The vast majority of Donald Trump's political project is that America is under assault, and by that he means white America. And he is completely anti any immigration or any flowing in of people from other parts in the world, whether legal or otherwise, whether it be a student at a university or somebody jumping the border to try and find out.
Well, to be fair, he's not specified. Hang on.
Yes, let me finish.
He hasn't hang on a second. No, I can't let you say something without challenging it if I think it's wrong. When you say that he's predominantly aiming this for the white population of America, what has he said that's ever? Well, what's he ever said that suggests that? I've never heard him say, "I want to protect the white people in America." He said, "I want to protect Americans of all kinds, white, black, whatever." You might think that he's ever said it.
Yeah, but Piers, come on, a wink and a nudge is as good as a communication. Let's be real
I
about
don't
this.
agree.
You're
No, I think
smart,
it's
man.
lazy. I
Let
think
me
it's lazy
finish.
to do that.
No, you haven't even let me finish, though, and this show is called
Yeah,
Piers
because you
Morgan.
made a statement about Trump I don't think is true.
Okay, so I haven't even finished about why he's obsessing with this. Let me finish my idea, and then you can critique it as much as you like. It is your show. Okay, so Donald Trump largely goes after immigrants, and he criticizes the immigrants who are of color from countries in the world that he calls S-hole countries. I don't know if we can swear on this show, but that was a quote about most African countries.
We're uncensored. Right? Say what you like.
Shithole countries. Okay, so but that's a quote from the American president. So what is different about the South African white farmer plight versus all the other refugee programs that he's cancelled, including 10,000 applications that are live and would have reached the fruition of like Afghani people who helped the Americans in Afghanistan getting safe haven in America, is the fact that these are white refugees. There are no white refugees being denied passage from any other country in the world. This fits the narrative that Trump really loves, that there are white people under attack, that the identity of white America is under attack, that they're going to be washed away, the great replacement theory. In my opinion, Piers, and you're welcome to disagree with me, you can see that everyone who Trump dislikes is either a person of color or a white person who disagrees with them. Those are the only two categories. And for him, under Elon Musk...
that is complete... I'm sorry. That is complete and utter nonsense.
Give me another example, then.
He said Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, should be in jail. Last time I checked, Keir Starmer's white. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
He attacks white people all the time.
I said two categories. I said white people who disagree with his politics or people of color.
Keir Starmer disagrees with his politics.
Keir Starmer's been bashed by the MAGA right for so long. And if Keir Starmer doesn't follow Trump's ideas about Ukraine or about Starlink, then Keir Starmer is in his crosshairs. It's as simple as that. It's always been the case.
Right. I think everyone's... Listen, I have been in Trump's crosshairs after the last interview we did. He didn't talk to me for 6 months. Last time I checked, I'm white. It's fine.
Did you criticize him?